Let me start by asking you a simple question. When was the last time you listened to the way you talk to yourself? Not out loud, but in your head. Those quiet, constant whispers that shape your every step. For most of us, our inner voice isn't always kind. It tells us we're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready. It doubts our dreams and downplays our victories. It compares us to others, criticizes our efforts, and fears failure before we even begin. This is why any goal that actually puts you beyond your means burden gets you 153. But what if, for just 3 days, you change that voice? What if, for 3 days, you talk to yourself like you would to someone you love, like a best friend, a mentor, or even a coach who sees your full potential? What if, for 3 days, you said, I've got this. I'm proud of how far I've come. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to keep showing up. Every setback is a setup for a comeback. I am learning. I am growing. I am enough. Imagine the shift. Because here's the truth. The words you speak to yourself have power. They shape your mood, your mindset, and your momentum. You become what you consistently tell yourself. You can't plant seeds of doubt in your mind and expect confidence to grow. You can't water your thoughts with fear and hope for courage. But if for just 3 days you intentionally speak kindness, belief, and encouragement into your own heart, you will feel the difference. And you'll start to notice something else, that the world around you begins to reflect what you believe within you, that opportunities feel more reachable, that your energy shifts, that you walk a little taller, breathe a little deeper, and step a little braver. So I challenge you, no, I invite you to try it. Just 3 days, not forever, just enough time to see how powerful your own voice can be. Your inner voice is one of the most powerful forces in your life, even though it's invisible and often goes unnoticed. It narrates your experiences, influences your choices, and shapes your reality more than any outside circumstance ever could. The way you speak to yourself day in and day out becomes the foundation for your self-belief, your resilience, your confidence, and ultimately the life you create for yourself. Imagine walking into a room full of strangers. If your inner voice says, you don't belong here, you're going to mess this up, chances are you'll shrink into yourself. You'll avoid eye contact, you'll speak quietly, or maybe you won't speak at all. But if that same voice says, you've got something valuable to share, just be yourself, your energy shifts, you hold your head higher, you smile more easily, you engage with others in a genuine way. Nothing about the room changed, just the way you spoke to yourself. It's the power of your inner dialogue. It doesn't just comment on reality, it creates it. Your brain listens to what you say even if you don't mean it. Repeated thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs drive behavior. If you tell yourself you're not good enough, you start acting like it, you stop trying, you hold back, and you slowly start proving yourself right, not because it's true, but because you believed it long enough to make it feel true. The tricky thing is that negative self-talk often disguises itself as realism. We tell ourselves we're just being honest or not getting our hopes up. But what we're really doing is rehearsing failure before anything even happens. We preemptively limit ourselves in an effort to avoid disappointment, but all we're really doing is robbing ourselves of joy, growth, and opportunity. On the flip side, when you begin to intentionally speak to yourself with kindness and belief, things begin to shift. It's not about lying to yourself or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing a voice that encourages you rather than crushes you. It's telling yourself, I don't know everything yet, but I'm willing to learn. It's saying, I made a mistake, but that doesn't make me a failure. It's remembering, I've come a long way and I'm proud of my progress. This kind of self-talk builds resilience. It creates an inner safety net that catches you when things don't go as planned. Instead of spiraling into self-blame, you bounce back with compassion and clarity. And that resilience over time becomes strength. When you consistently practice positive self-talk, it doesn't just stay in your head. It changes how you show up in your relationships, your work, and your goals. You start taking more chances. You become more present. You give yourself permission to grow without the pressure of being perfect. And perhaps most importantly, you become someone you can count on, someone you trust. So often we search for external validation, someone else to tell us we're good enough, talented enough, or strong enough. But the most powerful validation you'll ever receive is the one that comes from within. When your inner voice becomes your ally instead of your critic, your world begins to open up. Your reality isn't just what happens around you, it's what you believe, what you expect, and how you respond. And all of that begins with the voice you hear the most, your own. Change that voice, even just a little, and you begin to change your life. Most self-talk is unintentionally negative, and the majority of us don't even realize it. It happens quietly in the background of our minds, often so automatically that it goes unnoticed. But even when we don't consciously hear it, it's there. Commenting, judging, criticizing, and comparing. It's the voice that whispers, "You're not doing enough. You're too late. You're not as good as them." And because it feels so familiar, so constant, we start to believe it must be true. This negative self-talk doesn't usually come from a place of hatred or self-destruction. More often than not, it's rooted in fear, insecurity, or a desire to protect ourselves from disappointment. It tries to keep us safe by warning us of failure before we even try. It convinces us to stay small to avoid the risk of being rejected or embarrassed. And while that might seem helpful on the surface, it's actually one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck, trapped, not by their actual limitations, but by the internal voice that constantly tells them what they can't do. Think about how often you say things to yourself like, "I'm such an idiot. Why do I always mess this up?" Or "I'll never be good at this." These phrases might feel harmless or even humorous in the moment, but repeated over time, they chip away at your self-worth. They become a mental script that plays every time you're challenged, stressed, or trying something new. And because your brain takes cues from your thoughts, this internal script starts shaping your confidence, your actions, and ultimately, your identity. Many of these negative thoughts come from past experiences, like criticism we received as children, failure we never fully processed, or comparisons we made in moments of insecurity. Over time, they blend into our inner monologue and run unchecked, influencing how we view ourselves and the world. We don't wake up and decide to be hard on ourselves. It just becomes a habit. The danger of this habit is that it becomes self-fulfilling. If you constantly tell yourself you're not smart enough, you'll hesitate to speak up. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll stop trying. If you keep saying, "I always mess things up," you'll begin to see every mistake as proof that you're right. This is not because you're incapable, but because your self-talk has limited your perspective and confidence. The good news is that self-talk, like any habit, can be changed. The first step is simply becoming aware of it. Start paying attention to how you speak to yourself, especially in difficult moments. Notice the tone, the words, the assumptions. You might be surprised at how harsh your inner voice can be, how quickly it criticizes, and how rarely it offers encouragement. Once you recognize those patterns, you can begin to challenge them. Would you talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself? Would you tell someone you care about that they're a failure for making a mistake? Probably not. So why say it to yourself? You deserve the same level of compassion and support that you'd offer to someone else. Rewriting your self-talk doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is fine. It means speaking truth with kindness. Instead of, "I'm terrible at this," try, "I'm still learning." Instead of, "I always fail," say, "I didn't succeed this time, but I'll try again." These small shifts matter. Over time, they create a new pattern. Rather than supports growth rather than fear. Unintentional negativity in your self-talk might be common, but it doesn't have to be permanent. By becoming conscious of it and choosing new words, you can build an inner voice that uplifts instead of undermines. And that change can transform everything. Intentional self-talk creates powerful shifts in how we think, feel, and act. Unlike the automatic thoughts that often run through our minds unchecked, intentional self-talk is conscious, deliberate, and empowering. It's the practice of choosing words that encourage growth, confidence, and resilience. While it might sound simple, the impact it can have on your mindset and your life is anything but small. Most of us go through our days with a running commentary in our heads. This inner voice judges our actions, evaluates our worth, and predicts our future. The problem is, without awareness, that voice is often negative or limiting. But when we begin to speak to ourselves with purpose and positivity, we start to see ourselves and our circumstances through a different lens. We stop reacting on autopilot and start responding with clarity and strength. Intentional self-talk isn't about lying to yourself or pretending everything is perfect. It's about speaking to yourself in a way that aligns with the person you want to become. It's saying things like, I can handle this even when you're scared. It's reminding yourself this feeling won't last forever when you're overwhelmed. It's affirming, I've done hard things before, I can do it again when you're standing in front of a challenge. This kind of self-talk rewires your brain over time. Neuroscience shows us that the brain is adaptable. It changes based on repetition and focus. When you repeatedly tell yourself something positive and empowering, you strengthen those neural pathways. That means over time, confidence, courage, and self-belief can actually become your default mindset, not because your life got easier, but because your mind got stronger. One of the most powerful aspects of intentional self-talk is how it affects your emotional state. The words you choose can either heighten anxiety or soothe it. They can fuel anger or calm it. They can drain your energy or recharge it. By choosing your words carefully, you begin to regulate your emotional responses in a healthier way. Instead of spiraling into, I can't do this, you take a deep breath and say, I'll figure this out one step at a time. That shift alone can keep you grounded when everything around you feels uncertain. Intentional self-talk also creates a more supportive inner environment for taking risks and embracing growth. When you encourage yourself instead of criticizing every move, you're more willing to step out of your comfort zone. You don't wait until you feel confident. You build confidence by showing up for yourself. It's the voice inside saying, let's just try, that gets you moving, and the one that says, see, you're doing it, that keeps you going. What makes this practice truly transformative is that it becomes a tool you can use anytime, anywhere. Whether you're preparing for a presentation, navigating a difficult conversation, or facing personal setbacks, your self-talk can be the anchor that keeps you steady. Over time, you start to trust yourself more. You feel less at the mercy of your circumstances because you've learned to guide your mindset intentionally. Changing your inner dialogue doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice and patience, but each time you choose a kind, strong, or hopeful word instead of a fearful or critical one, you're creating a powerful shift. You're rewriting the script of your life, not by changing the outside world, but by transforming how you speak to yourself within it. And that shift can open doors you never thought possible. In the end, your voice is the one you'll hear the most throughout your life. Make sure it's one that lifts you up. Because when you talk to yourself with intention, you give yourself the power to grow, heal, and thrive no matter what comes your way. Speak to yourself like someone you love. It sounds simple, almost obvious, but for many people, it's one of the hardest things to do. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to strive, to compare, to achieve more. And in the process, we often become our own harshest critics. We pick ourselves apart for not being good enough, fast enough, smart enough, or strong enough. Yet, if a friend or someone we deeply care about came to us with the same struggles, we wouldn't respond with criticism. We'd respond with compassion. Loving someone means supporting them through highs and lows, celebrating their efforts, and reminding them of their worth even when they can't see it themselves. It means listening without judgment and offering gentle encouragement instead of shame. So why is it that we so easily give that grace to others, but refuse to give it to ourselves? The way we speak to ourselves matters. It doesn't just affect our mood, it shapes our identity. If you constantly tell yourself that you're a failure, you begin to show up in life as someone who expects to fail. If you tell yourself you're unworthy of love or success, you'll subconsciously sabotage opportunities that prove otherwise. But when you start speaking to yourself like someone you love, with encouragement, kindness, and belief, you begin to create a safe space within yourself, a place where you are allowed to try, to fall, to rise, and to grow. Loving self-talk isn't about ignoring your flaws or pretending you have it all together. It's about recognizing that you are a human being who is allowed to be a work in progress. It's telling yourself, I made a mistake, but that doesn't make me a bad person. It's saying, I'm proud of myself for trying, even if the outcome wasn't perfect. It's knowing that you're allowed to take breaks, to feel tired, to say no, and to protect your peace, because you matter. When you speak to yourself with love, you begin to heal old wounds that were opened by years of inner criticism or external judgment. You stop defining your worth by what you do or how others see you. You begin to see yourself as someone who deserves care, not because you earned it, but because you're already enough. This shift changes how you show up in the world. You become more resilient because you're no longer tearing yourself down when things go wrong. You become more confident because you start to believe in your own voice. You begin to set healthier boundaries because you understand your value, and slowly you begin to feel more at peace because you're no longer at war with yourself. One of the most transformative questions you can ask yourself in difficult moments is, what would I say to someone I love who felt this way? And then say that to yourself, even if it feels unnatural at first, even if it feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is just the old critical voice being replaced by something healthier and more true. The relationship you have with yourself is the foundation for every other relationship in your life. When you treat yourself with respect and compassion, you model how others should treat you too. You teach your children, your friends, and your partner what self-love looks like, not just through words, but through example. So the next time you catch yourself in a moment of doubt or disappointment, pause, breathe, and speak to yourself like someone you love, with kindness, with patience, with encouragement. Because you deserve that kind of love, not just from others, but from yourself every single day. In a world that often glorifies flawless results and picture-perfect success, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that perfection is the ultimate goal. We wait for the right time to start. We hesitate to act unless we're sure we can do it without making mistakes. But the truth is, nothing sustainable, meaningful, or transformative is built on perfection. It's built on consistency. And when it comes to changing your mindset, growing as a person, or building new habits, consistency always matters more than getting everything right. Consistency is about showing up, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, and even when you don't feel your best. It's about choosing progress over perfection, knowing that small steps taken daily will always get you further than big leaps taken once in a while. When we focus too much on being perfect, we end up doing nothing at all. We wait, we plan endlessly, we self-sabotage by convincing ourselves that if it's not done perfectly, it's not worth doing. But life doesn't reward perfection, it rewards persistence. Think about the way we talk to ourselves. We might try positive self-talk for a day, feel good for a moment, then slip back into old patterns. That's when the perfectionist voice kicks in. See, you can't stick with it. Why even try? But that voice is wrong. You don't have to be perfect at self-love, growth, or mindset change. You just have to keep coming back over and over, gently, patiently, without shame. Consistency builds trust in yourself. Every time you follow through, no matter how small the effort, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable, capable, and committed. That's powerful. It creates momentum. Over time, your efforts compound. 5 minutes of journaling every day adds up to more clarity than one perfect entry a month. A few kind words to yourself each morning does more than one intense motivational speech once a year. It's not the dramatic actions that change us, it's the steady ones. One of the reasons consistency is so effective is because it gives room for learning and flexibility. When you're not chasing perfection, you give yourself space to make mistakes, to experiment, and to grow without the pressure of having to get everything right. You become more adaptable, more resilient, and far less likely to give up when things don't go exactly as planned. Letting go of perfection also means letting go of harsh self-judgment. You start to understand that setbacks are not failures, they're part of the process. You stop measuring your worth by flawless performance and start celebrating the fact that you're still trying, still showing up, still choosing to move forward. That shift in mindset is everything. There will be days when your effort feels small, days when your mind is tired, when motivation is low, or when progress feels invisible. But those are the days that count the most, because showing up when it's easy doesn't build strength. Showing up when it's hard does. Whether you're learning to speak kindly to yourself, building a new habit, or healing from something painful, the key isn't doing it perfectly. The key is doing it again and again with love, with patience, and with faith in the process. Perfection is fleeting. Consistency is what lasts. So remind yourself it's okay to stumble. It's okay to have off days. What matters is that you keep coming back. Keep practicing. Keep choosing to care for yourself, even in the smallest ways. Because it's not about being perfect. It's about never giving up on you. 3 days may not sound like much, but it's enough to feel a real difference when you commit to changing the way you speak to yourself. Most people underestimate how quickly their thoughts can begin to shift when they bring awareness and intention into their inner dialogue. We often assume that personal growth takes months or years to feel significant. And yes, long-term change does take time, but the momentum starts much sooner. With just 3 days of consistent, kind, and empowering self-talk, you can begin to notice a powerful internal shift. The reason 3 days can make such an impact is because for many people, it's the first time they've ever truly paid attention to how they speak to themselves. Most self-talk is unconscious. It plays in the background like a worn-out tape, repeating the same critical or fearful messages. When you decide, even just for 3 days, to interrupt that pattern and choose new words, your brain takes notice. It's like turning on a light in a room you didn't realize was dark. You begin to hear how often you doubt yourself. You start to catch the moments where you'd normally be hard on yourself, and you get a chance to do something different. That small moment of awareness is powerful. It opens the door to choice. You don't have to believe every negative thought that crosses your mind. You don't have to continue down the same mental path that leads to self-doubt, shame, or overwhelm. You can choose different words. You can speak to yourself with the same understanding you'd give to someone you love. And when you do that, even for just 3 days, you start to feel lighter, calmer, and more in control. What's even more encouraging is that you don't have to do it perfectly. You're not expected to eliminate every negative thought or be endlessly positive. That's not the point. The point is to interrupt the automatic cycle, to become aware, to soften the harshness and bring in more compassion, even just a little at a time. Maybe on day 1, you only catch 1 or 2 moments where you normally would have criticized yourself, and instead you choose encouragement. Maybe on day 2, you find yourself pausing before reacting to a mistake and offering patience instead of blame. By day 3, you might notice you're walking through your day with a bit more confidence, a bit more peace. These small changes matter. They build emotional momentum. They begin to retrain your brain to expect kindness instead of cruelty. And when you feel the shift, even if it's subtle, you realize that you have more power over your mindset than you once thought. That realization is often enough to inspire you to keep going. You may not completely transform your self-pajim in 3 days, but you will start to shift the foundation it's built on. You'll realize how much of your suffering came from the way you spoke to yourself, and how much peace is possible when you start speaking with love, encouragement, and truth. And that's what makes 3 days so important. It's long enough to feel a difference and short enough that it feels doable. The beauty of starting with 3 days is that it's a small, manageable commitment. It doesn't feel overwhelming, but it's enough to break the cycle. It's enough to prove to yourself that change is possible. And once you feel that shift, even a little bit, you'll want more. You'll start to wonder what might happen if you kept going for a week, a month, or longer. In the end, transformation doesn't start with huge leaps. It starts with small choices, repeated with care. 3 days of intentional self-talk is enough to open the door. The only question is, are you willing to walk through it?